I just finished changing the oil in the truck when Collins walked through the door like she always did. Keys in one hand, shoes in the other, humming some tune from the radio. It was a Thursday. Nothing remarkable about it. I remember the way the sun angled through the kitchen window, lighting up the dust on the counter I hadn't wiped yet. 23 years of marriage, and I could read her mood by how she closed the door. But today, I couldn't read a damn thing. She set her bag down, leaned against the counter, and crossed her arms like she was about to ask me how my day went. But what came out next hit me like a freight train. "I'm going out tonight," she said, calm as ever. "On a date." First, I thought she was joking. A bad one, sure, but something we'd laugh about later. Maybe some game her book club cooked up. But she didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. "A date," I repeated, the wrench still in my hand. "With who?" "I don't think that matters," she replied, not flinching. "What matters is that I need something different. Something new." I stared at her. This was the woman I held in a hospital room while she delivered our first daughter. The woman I drove 3 states to find the perfect anniversary gift for 1 year. The woman who once cried because she forgot my birthday and swore it'd never happen again. Now she was standing in our kitchen talking about dating like she was ordering takeout. "You're married?" I said slowly, as if maybe she forgot. "I know," she said, like it was a technicality. "But I've been doing a lot of reading. Therapy, podcasts, friends, there's a whole world out there. Open marriages work for people now. We could try it. I still love you, but I also want freedom." I set the wrench down, not slammed, just set it quietly. I knew if I didn't control the fire building in my gut, I'd say something I'd regret. And that wasn't the kind of man I am. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You want to stay married while dating other people?" She nodded like it was no different than trying a new recipe. "No," I said flat. "You don't get to redefine marriage midstream. You want freedom? Fine. But don't call it love. Don't stand here in the house we built together, using the language of cowards to soften betrayal." She opened her mouth, maybe to justify it, maybe to tell me how modern love works. I didn't let her. "I'm going out," I said, grabbing my jacket. "Where are you going?" she asked, genuinely confused, as if I owed her a schedule. "Somewhere I can breathe." Beck's apartment wasn't far, just over in Franklin Terrace. She answered the door in leggings and a messy bun, her face already tight with worry before I even said a word. "Dad? What happened? Mind if I crash here for a bit?" She stepped aside. I walked in, and for the first time in hours, my spine uncoiled. I sat on her couch, and the weight hit me all at once. Beck brought me a glass of water and sat beside me like she used to when she was a kid and something scared her in the night. "Is it Mom?" she asked. "She's dating," I said. "Or wants to. Says it's part of some enlightened, modern thing." Beck froze. "She told me she was going to a book club." I looked at her. "Tonight." She nodded. She picked up her phone. "That lying." "Don't," I said. "I don't want this dragging you in." But she was already dialing. I heard Collins pick up. Beck's voice didn't shake. "Hey, Mom, what's book club reading tonight?" Silence. Then, we're doing a memoir, I think." "A memoir?" Beck cut her off. "You know Dad's here, right? You told him about your little date night plan. Guess what? He came here. Maybe you can explain to both of us how lying fits into your open marriage dream." Click. Beck looked like she wanted to throw her phone through the window. I just sat there. "Why would she do this?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm done trying to make sense of it." That night, I slept on Beck's couch, staring at her ceiling fan spin in slow, lazy circles. My heart wasn't broken. It was gutted, hollowed out by someone who claimed to love me and now couldn't even be honest about why she needed a stranger's attention. But I wasn't going to beg. And I sure as hell wasn't going to share my wife with anyone. I didn't know what came next, but I knew what wouldn't. Me crawling back. Not a chance in hell. Beck's place smelled like burnt coffee and lavender. It was small, 2 bedrooms and barely enough space to stretch out. But it was homey in a way I hadn't felt in months. Maybe years. She made eggs in the morning, quietly, like she was afraid even the clinking of a fork might push me over the edge. "I called Sylvia last night," she said finally, sliding a plate in front of me. "Told her what Mom said." I didn't respond. I just kept eating. Fork, chew, swallow. I didn't want to say it out loud again. Didn't want to give Collins's words any more power than they already had. "She's coming over," Beck added, sitting down across from me. "Said she needed to hear it from you." I took a long sip of coffee. "All right." Sylvia showed up an hour later, hair in a neat ponytail, work blazer still buttoned. Always the responsible one. Always trying to play peacemaker. She barely made it past the doorway before she blurted, "Dad, is it true?" Beck was already leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Sylvia turned to me like she wanted me to deny it. "She told me she's seeing someone," I said evenly. "Said she wants to keep our marriage. Just modernize it." Sylvia blinked. "Modernize it?" "She's been listening to her podcast crew," Beck snapped. "Next thing you know, she's in heels heading to dinner with some stranger while Dad's under the same roof." Sylvia looked like she'd been slapped. She turned to me again. "But she said she still loves you?" "She did," I said, setting down my mug. "But I don't think love comes with a menu of options. Not in my book." Sylvia sat down slowly, like her knees had lost strength. "Maybe this is just a phase," she whispered. "Maybe she's going through something." "She's not 20, Beck fired back. "She's a grown woman making selfish choices. She lied to me, she lied to you, and she lied to Dad." "I'm not saying she's right," Sylvia said, raising her voice slightly. "I'm saying maybe she's confused." "She's not confused," I said, finally looking up at both of them. "She's decided, and so have I." They both went quiet. I let the silence hang there, heavy, uncomfortable, honest. Beck broke it first. "So what now?" "I'm moving out," I said. "Probably go up to the lake house for a while. I need space to think." "You're just leaving?" Sylvia asked, like it hadn't clicked yet. "I'm not leaving you girls. I'm leaving a situation that's toxic. I'm not sticking around to play the fool while she auditions new boyfriends." Sylvia looked down. "I don't want to lose my family." "You won't," I said. "But we don't get to pretend things are normal when they're not." She crossed a line. There's no going back from that. The three of us sat there in silence. Beck finally stood and started pacing the room. "I knew something was off," she said. "She's been different lately, always vague, checking her phone constantly. I just didn't want to believe it." Sylvia rubbed her forehead like she was trying to massage reality away. "I feel like I'm in some weird dream." "I did too," I told her. "But you wake up fast when the woman you've loved for half your life looks you in the eye and tells you she's going out with another man, and expects you to be okay with it." Sylvia got up and walked toward me. Her eyes welled up as she hugged me, hard. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't see it coming." "I didn't either," I said, hugging her back. "But I'm not going to fall apart over it." Beck walked over and wrapped her arms around both of us. The three of us stood there, huddled in her small kitchen, just trying to stay upright through the wreckage. Later that night, after both girls went to bed, I stood on Beck's balcony smoking a cigar I'd found in my coat pocket. Half stale, but it did the job. I watched the stars and listened to the hum of traffic below. Somewhere out there, Collins was probably sipping wine across from a man whose name I didn't know. Maybe smiling the same way she once smiled at me. But I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel grief. I felt clarity. My daughters saw the truth now. They weren't blind to what she'd done. And I wasn't going to let this betrayal become the center of my life. I took one last pull from the cigar and flicked it over the rail. Tomorrow I'll pack a bag and head to the lake house. And I wouldn't be looking back. The driveway looked the same as it always had. Pale gravel crunching under my boots, hydrangeas blooming along the porch rail, a wind chime clinking in the breeze. You'd never guess the marriage inside had rotted from the inside out. I parked the truck, sat for a minute, then killed the engine. Inside, Collins was barefoot, sipping tea at the kitchen table with a book cracked open. Just another day for her. No shame, no hesitation, You came back, she said, like I'd gone out for milk. I came to talk, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Not to stay. She closed the book and folded her hands like she was preparing for a job interview. Barnes, I know you're angry. I get that. But I think we can work through this, if we're honest about what we want. I already know what I want, I said. I want peace. Not this circus you're trying to sell me as growth. She sighed. This isn't a circus. It's called being real. People change. I need to change. So do boundaries, I said. And mine aren't up for debate. She got up and walked toward the sink, staring out the window like she was about to deliver some great philosophical insight. I'm not the same woman I was at 30, and neither are you. Don't you feel stuck? Routine? You wake up, fix the truck, mow the lawn, go to bed. There's no fire anymore. I stepped forward. Fire? You want fire? You set this place on fire the moment you lied to my face and called it honesty. I never lied about how I feel, she snapped, spinning around. I love you. That hasn't changed. Then your definition of love is trash, I said flatly, because it doesn't include loyalty, or truth, or even basic respect. She winced like I'd hit her, but I didn't flinch. You know what's wild, Collins? I didn't stop loving you. Not until you came home and told me you were going out with another man like it was nothing. Not until you looked me in the eye and acted like I was the one who needed to evolve. She crossed her arms. So what? You want a divorce? No, I said. I already filed the papers. That knocked the breath out of her. I could see it in the way her lips parted, but no sound came out. I talked to a lawyer 2 days ago. I dropped off the paperwork this morning. You'll be served next week. You're not even going to try counseling? She said, eyes wide, voice cracking. I suggested therapy. Yeah, you suggested therapy after you broke the damn glass, I said. You don't get to destroy something and then ask me to help sweep up the mess. She started pacing. This is happening too fast. We need time. The girls need time. The girls already know, I said. They know the truth. And they're not interested in playing make-believe, Collins. Beck saw through you instantly. Sylvia's still processing. But she knows you didn't just trip and fall into this. Her hands were shaking now. I never meant to hurt anyone. I needed to feel alive again. I stared at her for a long moment. Then go feel alive. But you won't do it with my name on your checks or my roof over your head. She looked at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. I can't believe you're doing this, she said. That's your problem, I told her. You thought I'd sit still. You thought I'd swallow your lies, nod along, and wait for you to come home from dates while I washed your wine glasses. I walked past her, straight to the bedroom, packed a duffel with enough for a few weeks. Boots, jeans, shirts, my old fishing knife. Grabbed the photo of Beck and Sylvia when they were kids, sunburned and smiling on the lake dock. When I stepped back into the hallway, she was blocking the door. Please, she said, eyes glassy now. Just think about this. About us. I didn't push her. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked her square in the eye. There is no us. Not anymore. I stepped around her, opened the door, and walked into the afternoon sun. The air outside felt sharp and clean. My truck door creaked the same way it always did, and I took a long breath as I fired up the engine. I didn't drive fast, just steady. Past the diner where we used to eat Sunday breakfast. Past the school where Beck used to march in parades. Past the life we built together piece by piece, until she decided to bulldoze it in the name of self-discovery. I headed north, to the lake house, too quiet, and this time I wasn't coming back. The lake house sits at the edge of Red Pine Lake, where the trees lean over the water like they're tired of standing. No neighbors, no traffic. Just loons calling at dawn and the occasional crack of branches shifting in the wind. I hadn't been here in nearly 2 years. Collins always said it was too quiet, too remote. Said the silence made her anxious. Me? I liked the silence. Told the truth. I spent the first few days splitting wood, fixing the deck, organizing tools that hadn't been touched in a decade. I wasn't distracting myself. I was returning to something real. Every plank I hammered, every fire I built, reminded me that I was still here, still whole, even if the woman I gave my life to had chosen chaos over commitment. She called the third day. I let it ring. Then she texted, "Can we talk?" Not about fighting, about fixing. I didn't reply. By the second week, she started sending emails. Long ones. Lines and lines about how she still loved me, how she felt lost, how she never expected me to take things this far. She still thought this was a phase, that I just needed time to cool down before coming home. But I wasn't cooling down. I was waking up. I filed the papers with a small firm in Hillsborough. No messy court drama, no public scene. I had my ducks in a row. Property split clean. No kids to fight over. Just the house, retirement accounts, and her favorite excuse, freedom. The day she got served, I didn't hear from her. Not a text, not a voicemail. Just silence. Maybe she thought I'd cave after filing, that I'd show up at the door, say I overreacted. But I wasn't bluffing. A week later, her number popped up again. This time I answered. "Barnes?" She started. Too soft. Too rehearsed. I didn't expect it to happen like this. I said nothing. I just thought therapy, maybe we could go slow. Try to repair things before making permanent choices. "This isn't a choice I made lightly," I said. "But it's permanent. You're just going to walk away from 23 years? No. You walked away the moment you asked for another man and called it progress. I'm just catching up to the truth." She was quite a long time. "I didn't think you'd go through with it," she finally whispered. "I did. You're punishing me." I almost laughed. "No, Collins. I'm freeing myself. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Freedom? Well, now you've got it. I hope he was worth it." Click. The final hearing lasted 11 minutes. I sat there on a video call in a button-up shirt, watching a judge I'd never met rubber stamp the end of everything I thought was solid. Collins was quiet the entire time. Didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just sat there blinking into her webcam like she'd finally realized the house was on fire and she'd locked herself inside. When the judge closed the session, I shut the laptop and stood there in the cabin's quiet, looking out over the lake. It was done. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was clear. That night, I lit a fire outside, poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon and sat on the porch, watching the embers crackle under the stars. The cold bit through my sleeves, but I didn't move. I welcomed it. For 23 years, I was the man who showed up, who paid the bills, kissed the forehead, grilled the steaks, fixed the sinks. I was the anchor, and she called that boring. Funny thing about anchors, they keep you from drifting off into the storm. Now I had no reason to stay. No chains. No waiting for her to come home smelling like another man's cologne and empty justifications. I retired 2 months earlier than planned. Sold off the business shares. Bought a camper that could handle back roads and border crossings. I didn't leave a note. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just started driving. South. Mexico welcomed me like an old friend with a cold beer and a warm sun. I found a sleepy town tucked between the mountains and a lake the color of polished slate. No tourists, no expats, just fishermen, old widows, and a local bar that served chicken mole so good it made me forget my name. I rented a place on a hillside, 1 bedroom, 1 hammock, no television. The kind of place that reminded you what quiet sounded like. I spent my mornings walking the dirt roads. My afternoons sitting by the water with a book and a strong coffee. My nights watching the moon rise, alone and content. For the first time in decades, no one needed me, and I didn't need to explain myself. I wasn't lost. I wasn't broken. I was free. The rainy season has passed. In its place came mornings like this. Sunlight dancing on the surface of the lake, air warm enough to make coffee feel indulgent, not necessary. I had a rhythm now. Wake before dawn, walk the shoreline, pick up groceries from the market, and disappear into a hammock until dusk. I hadn't planned on staying forever, but the silence suited me. It was Beck who changed that. She showed up one evening in a rust-covered SUV, hair in a braid, bags piled in the back seat. I was in a t-shirt and sandals, holding a fishing pole. She stepped out, stretched, and said, "I'm not leaving." I stared at her. "You flew to Guadalajara and rented that thing to tell me you're moving in?" "No," she said. "I flew to Guadalajara, rented this thing, drove 3 hours through winding mountain roads, nearly ran over a goat, and now I'm telling you I've already signed a lease on a lodge down the road." I blinked. "A lodge? Boutique hotel," she said. 12 rooms, needs a lot of work. But the bones are good. And the view's even better than yours." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like something had snapped back into place. She stayed for dinner. We grilled fish and drank cheap wine on the patio. She told me about the burnout, the politics at her job, the emptiness after what happened with Collins. "I couldn't take her seriously after that," she said. "After what she did to you. You don't have to pick sides." I said. "I'm not," she replied. "She made her choice. I'm making mine." 2 months later, Sylvia showed up. No SUV, no announcement, just a knock on the door, and there she was, sun hat in one hand, suitcase in the other. "I'm not here to stay," she said. I stepped aside. "Of course not." She lasted 3 days before asking about long-term rentals. We fell into a pattern. The 3 of us. Beck worked long days fixing up the lodge. Sylvia volunteered at the small school in town. Me acting like I was retired but finding excuses to help with paint jobs, repairs, and whatever else needed muscle. We'd have Sunday dinners, grilled meat, rice, homemade tortillas, and talk about everything except the past. Beck would tease me about my lack of seasoning. Sylvia would critique my wardrobe like I was going to be discovered by a talent scout. They called me El Gringo Grande at the market. But around town, I was just Barnes. No longer Collins's husband. No longer a man abandoned. Just a father. A friend. A man rebuilding. One night, Beck and I sat by the lake watching the sun disappear behind the hills. She lit a cigarette even though she rarely smoked. "You know what I realized?" she said. "Mom thought freedom meant escape. But what she ran toward wasn't freedom. It was attention." I nodded slowly. "And what you found here?" "Stillness," she said. "Direction. You're the compass, Dad. You always were." That stuck with me. Sylvia, always the quieter one, opened up in her own way. One afternoon, we were sanding old furniture for the lodge when she asked, "Do you think she regrets it?" "I think she regrets the consequences," I said. "Not the choice." She didn't reply right away. "I used to think marriages could survive anything," she whispered. "Now I think they just survive honestly, or die without it." I didn't speak poorly of Collins. I didn't need to. My girls had eyes. They saw the difference. They felt calm in this new life and they stayed. Not because I asked, not because I begged, but because they saw who stood still when the storm hit. At night, I'd walk to Beck's lodge, now painted a soft yellow with lanterns glowing on the porch. I'd help her check the books, sit in on staff meetings. Sylvia kept the kids entertained in the garden out back. Sometimes I'd catch them laughing, carefree, fully themselves. That's when I knew. I hadn't just survived what Collins did. I'd built something better in its wake. Not louder, not flashier, but real. And real was more than enough. I met Nita Valiente at the hardware store. I was standing in the paint aisle trying to remember whether Beck wanted sunset yellow or golden maize, when a voice behind me said, "If you pick that one, you'll regret it every time the sun hits it." I turned. She was about my age, maybe a few years younger, with dark curls pulled back and a little smear of white paint on her cheek. Confident eyes. No smile, just the look of someone who didn't waste time on small talk or flattery. "Is that right?" I asked. "Trust me," she said, crossing her arms. "It dries ugly, like mustard that's been left out too long." I put the can back. "I'll take your word for it." That was it. No sparks, no slow-motion music. Just one honest woman talking straight. And that was more attractive than anything I'd seen in years. 2 weeks later, I saw her again, at the Lakeside Cantina. This time she was with a girl about 16, slim, sharp-eyed, dressed like someone who hated dresses but wore one for her mother's sake. I nodded at them as I passed their table. Nita waved me over. "This is my daughter, Pia," she said. "Pia. This is?" "Barnes," I said, smiling politely. "Barnes," Nita repeated, gesturing at the empty seat. "Sit, unless you're in a rush to go somewhere more exciting. Not unless you've seen fireworks over that lake I don't know about." She smirked. Pia rolled her eyes. I sat. Dinner turned into 3 hours of easy talk and unspoken connection. Nita was the kind of woman who didn't rush to fill silence. She made space for it. And Pia, despite the teenage shield, was curious, smart, quick. I learned Nita was a widow. Her husband had died 10 years back in a construction accident outside Monterey. She raised Pia alone while running a carpentry business her father left behind. "Men around here think I should have remarried years ago," she said, sipping her beer. "But I never found one who understood that I didn't need fixing." "Have you ever met one who needed fixing?" I asked. She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe, but I don't believe in fixer-uppers." That made me laugh. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Some weeks she'd invite me to dinner. Other weeks, I'd stop by her workshop and we'd talk over sawdust and varnish. It wasn't dating in the way the world defines it now, no games, no declarations. Just time. Consistent, warm time. Pia warmed up to me fast. She'd come to Sunday dinners with Beck and Sylvia and slip into conversation like she'd always been part of the table. One night, while walking her to the truck after dinner, she said, "You're the first man I've seen make my mom laugh in years. She pretends she's tough, but she's tired of being alone." I looked at her and said, "Yeah, so am I." 6 months after our first dinner, Nita and I sat on the dock watching lightning flash over the distant hills. Her hand was resting on mine, warm and steady. "I never thought I'd feel this again," she said softly. "What's that?" "Like I'm with someone who sees me. Not what I can do. Not what I provide. Just me." I looked at her. "I know the feeling." She turned her head, met my eyes. "Are you still angry?" It was a bold question. No hedging. No soft approach. I answered the only way I knew how. "No, I was, but not anymore." You can't hold on to that and hold someone new at the same time. She nodded, and her thumb moved over my knuckles slowly. "That's good," she said, "because I don't want to be a rebound." "You're not," I told her. "You're the reason I'm not broken." I didn't need grand gestures. I didn't need promises written in the sky. But when I looked at Nita, I saw something rare. Peace that wasn't quiet, but alive. Earned. And when Pia ran laughing through my kitchen with Beck and Sylvia like she'd always belonged, I realized something else. This wasn't a second chance. It was the first time I was truly seen. I proposed to Nita on Thursday. No flash mob. No orchestra. No hidden photographers in the bushes. Just the two of us, standing in the riverside gazebo Beck had restored behind her lodge. The late November sun cutting through the trees, and Pia pretending not to watch from the kitchen window. I didn't get down on one knee. I looked Nita straight in the eye and said, "You make me feel like I've still got years left worth living. I want to live with you." She didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just nodded and whispered, "Yes." Then she kissed me like we were already 10 years into something solid. The wedding was small, 30 people, maybe less. Locals, friends from town, Beck's lodge staff, a couple expats Nita knew from the co-op. Sylvia cried. Pia wore a yellow dress and walked her mom down the path with all the pride of a daughter who knew exactly what her mother deserved. We didn't bother with matching colors or table arrangements. Just a band, a bonfire, and grilled meat for everyone. No drama, no show. Just love that didn't need proving. Later that night, after the dancing slowed and the tequila ran dry, I sat on the porch watching Pia and Beck roast marshmallows. Nita came out and draped a shawl over my shoulders like she'd done it 1,000 times. "Are you tired?" she asked. "No," I said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "That I almost missed this," I said. "If I'd stayed bitter. If I'd held on to the idea that life ended the day Collins left." Nita didn't say anything. She just sat beside me, her hand finding mine without effort. "Do you still think about her?" she asked gently. "Sometimes," I admitted. But not with hate, just with clarity. She was your past, Nita said. But this, she nodded toward the firelight and laughter. This is your future. I squeezed her hand. This is my home. Pia started calling me Pops. Not because I asked her to. Not because we made a thing of it. One day she came into the kitchen, grabbed a slice of watermelon from the counter, and said, "Thanks, Pops." Like it had always been my name. And somehow it was. Sylvia started dating a teacher at the local school. Beck expanded the lodge with 2 new cabins, and I helped lay the foundation. We argued over where the septic line should run and laughed so hard one day we fell off the porch we were building. I had never felt more like myself. Not the man I was before Collins shattered our marriage. Not the man wandering through the ashes, but something better. We celebrated our first Christmas as a blended family that year. No fancy decorations, just pine boughs, string lights, and a turkey I nearly burned trying to impress Nita's aunt. We sat around a long wooden table. Pia, Beck, Sylvia, Nita, her extended family, and a few neighbors who had nowhere else to go. The kind of night where everyone stays too long, tells too many stories, and nobody checks their phone. After dinner, Sylvia leaned in and said, "You seem lighter." "I am," I said. "You all brought me back." "No," she whispered. "You never left. You just had to stop caring what wasn't yours." Sometimes I still walk down to the lake in the early mornings, watch the fog roll across the water, and think about how close I came to giving up. How close I came to believing that betrayal had the final say. But betrayal only ends the story if you stop writing. And I didn't. I kept building. Not the same house, not the same life, but something stronger. And this family, the one we chose, the one that grew out of truth instead of obligation, is the reward. No vows broken, no trust twisted, just laughter by firelight. A woman who meets my eyes with pride. And daughters who know the difference between real love and counterfeit promises. It was Sylvia's idea. We were setting up for Christmas. Beck hanging ornaments, Pia struggling to wrap gifts without using half the roll of tape. When Sylvia brought it up, "Dad," she said carefully, "I've been messaging Mom." I looked up from the string of lights I was untangling. "Yeah, she's different now. Humble, quiet. She's not spinning anymore. She asked if she could visit." I didn't say anything at first. I just kept working the knots out of the lights. "She wants to apologize," Sylvia continued. "Not to start over, just to see us. Maybe you." Beck looked over from the tree. "Is she bringing another manifesto about self-discovery?" Sylvia shook her head. "No, she knows that chapter's closed. She just wants to look us in the eye and say she's sorry." I took a deep breath. "You think I should let her come?" I asked. Sylvia didn't hesitate. "I think forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. And I think you're strong enough now to look her in the face and still walk tall." I told Nita that night after dinner. We were on the porch, a fire crackling in the brick pit I built myself. "She wants to visit," I said. "Christmas Eve." Nita sipped her wine, then nodded. "Then let her. You're okay with that?" She set her glass down and looked at me. "I married a man, not a wound," she said. "If seeing her gives you peace, I'm not afraid of ghosts." I kissed her on the forehead and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Collins arrived the next day. No red lipstick, no heels, no dramatic entrance. Just jeans, a weathered coat, and eyes that looked 10 years older than when I last saw her. Beck and Sylvia met her at the gate. I stayed on the porch, watching from a distance. When she saw me, she didn't rush over, didn't cry. She walked slowly, cautiously, like someone who finally understood the value of silence. "Hi, Barnes," she said. I nodded. "Collins." She stood there, awkward and small. "I won't stay long," she said. I needed to say this to your face." I waited. I was selfish. I was blind. And I hurt you in a way I can't undo. I thought I was chasing freedom, but I was just running from emptiness. You didn't deserve that. She looked down. "And seeing this, your life now, I know I never had a clue what real love looked like. I stepped down off the porch, stood in front of her, let the words hang in the cold December air. "You hurt me," I said, "but I survived." She looked up at me, blinking back tears. "I'm not asking for anything," she said. "I just needed to say I'm sorry." I nodded. "Then I forgive you, not because I wanted to, but because I had already let it go." She smiled, soft and sad. "That means more than you know." "I hope it does," I said. She looked toward the house, where Pia and Beck were laughing in the kitchen window. "You built something beautiful," she whispered. "No," I said. "I just stopped trying to fix what was broken." Collins stayed for coffee, sat beside Sylvia, talked quietly with Beck. She met Pia, complimented the cookies, and helped light candles on the table. No tension, just echoes of a different life, muted now by time and truth. Before she left, she hugged both girls, waved goodbye to Nita, then turned to me one last time. "You look better now," she said. "I am better now." She nodded, turned, and walked to her car. After she left, I stood outside by the fire, hands in my coat pockets. Nita came out and leaned into me. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She was the storm. But this, I gestured toward the warm lights inside, the sound of laughter and music. "This is the shelter." Forgiveness didn't mean I forgot. It didn't mean I excused it. But it meant she no longer had power over me. That chapter was closed. The next one was already being written, and I liked where it was going. Christmas morning brought rain. Not the angry kind, but a slow, steady drizzle that made the rooftop steam and the river swell just enough to touch the stones along the edge of the yard. I stood by the window with my coffee, watching the water rise, the clouds hanging low like they were in no rush to leave. Inside, the house was full. Nita was in the kitchen, an apron dusted with flour, humming something soft in Spanish. Beck and Sylvia were arguing over how much cinnamon to put in the cider. Pia had commandeered the old radio and was playing Motown at full volume, dancing with the dogs around the tree. It was chaotic, loud, warm. It was home. 2 years ago, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life in silence. Just me, a truck, and the lake. I thought that was the trade. Peace in exchange for solitude. Stillness in place of joy. But peace didn't mean being alone. It meant being surrounded by the right people. People who didn't lie to your face and call it growth. People who didn't break what you built and expect you to thank them for the opportunity to start over. These people, this new family, weren't bound by blood or rings or guilt. They were here because they wanted to be. And I was here because I chose to live again. After lunch, we all bundled up and took a walk down the trail behind the house. The rain had slowed to a mist, the trees dripping like they were letting go of something too. Pia held my hand. Beck walked ahead, snapping pictures. Sylvia linked arms with Nita, laughing about something I didn't catch. And I just breathed it all in. No tension in my chest. No bitterness clawing at the edges. No ghost of the man I used to be. Just the ground beneath my boots, the scent of pine in the air, and a quiet truth that settled deep in my bones. This wasn't the life I had planned, but it was the life I earned. Later that night, after everyone had drifted off to bed, I stood on the back porch alone. The river shimmered under the moonlight, higher than usual but calm. I thought about the man I was the day Collins told me she was going on a date. About how that man stood there stunned, staring at the wreckage of the life he thought he had. I didn't mourn him anymore. I respect him. He didn't fall apart. He didn't beg. He walked away with his dignity intact. And because he did, I got here, to this porch, this peace. This woman loves me unconditionally. These daughters who chose truth over comfort. This new life born from pain but forged by will. I raised my glass. One last quiet toast to the storm, to the ash, and to the fire that didn't burn me down but burned me clean. Then I stepped back inside, where warmth waited, where love stayed, where peace finally felt permanent.